that I always say, if I could boil my entire career down to a single sentence, all 22 years of doing this type of research, it would be that the presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. And by that, I mean, the presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. We did not find a single disease etiological pathway that did not have its roots in a lack of oxygen or was not exacerbated by oxygen, including all forms of cancer, early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, all kinds of neuropathologies, autoimmune disease, arthritis, gut issues, all kinds of allergies.
So what you're saying, so I understand, is lack of oxygen is very, very bad. And the more oxygenated you can be as a human being, it's very, very
The more efficient you are at moving oxygen around the body, the better off you are.
So how does somebody increase, well, hold on. I have so many questions.
Yeah.
I want to get back to Dana for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Because you worked with him. How long you worked with him now? About a year?
About a year. A little
Right.
year.
So what did you do to his, what did you call it? Maturing.
Yeah.
His estimated, life expectancy over the course of the time that you spent, you worked with him.
So when we looked at it the second time, it was more than 17 and a half years longer.
17 and a half years on top of 10?
On top of 10. So it went from
So you went from 10 to 27?
27.4.
27.4 from 10.4.
That's right. Now, and this is because if you look at the mortality factor,
And you said people don't change.
People rarely change.
People rarely
He flipped
change,
a
but
light
he did.
switch like I've never seen. He said, I said, Dana, if you do
You scared
everything
him?
that we
You
ask
scared him
you
a
to
little
do-
bit with the 10 years?
I scared him a little bit with the 10 years.
Yeah. Who wants to have all the money and then be gone?
That's what he said. I'm trying to time my exit so that I spend all my money. So I'm just kind of,
Fade,
sliding
yeah,
out. Fading.
yeah.
I don't want to leave too much behind, but I don't want to take too much with me. And we had a very frank discussion because, I was able to tell him some things about himself that he hadn't even shared with his wife. He hadn't shared with, the people very,
What
very
could you
close to
tell
him.
by this that I know you've looked at a lot of different people as a human biologist in the insurance business and also in the kind of what I would call the repair business. I mean, or to help people change to a new trajectory.
Yep.
What could you tell that quickly about a person and to be able to give them a new path to take them from 10 years to 27?
Well, you start by telling them basic things like, look, I can see that you wake up sore naked in the morning, like you had to work out the night before when you haven't. I bet it really bothers you that the soles of your feet and your ankles hurt when you get out of bed just to walk to the bathroom and take your first piss. And then you start to get more and more specific. I bet it, it really bothers you that this level of brain fog that you're struggling with has gotten worse and worse. You get a great idea in the bedroom, you walk to the kitchen, you wonder what the heck you're doing in the kitchen. You've noticed over the last 12 to 18 months that your libido has left the building. You don't really know why. You're attracted to your spouse, you love your spouse, but you have no arousal. And lately you've been in a serious mood funk, probably for the better part of a year and a half. And I call it mood numbness, where the peaks and valleys of mood disappear. When the range of mood starts to flatten, you don't get really, really happy. You don't get really, really, really upset. You're just kind of, And as that mood flattens and the brain fog increases and the overall stiffness and achiness happens, then what starts to happen to sleep is you lay down to go to bed at night to go to sleep, but your mind keeps you awake. Right? You're tired, but your mind is awake because as your environment quiets, if you don't control catecholamines, the mind wakes up. And then I started catecholamines, fight or flight neurotransmitters. It's a category of neurotransmitters that actually wakes the mind up. And they're actually present when you're having a fight or flight. These are things that we call adrenaline, dopamine, ephedrine, norepinephrine. The same kind of neurotransmitters that flood the brain in a fight or flight type of situation can flood the brain at night without the presence of a fear. And you can see this on their genetic testing. And then you look at hormone balance, and when hormones are low, you see that red blood cell and hemoglobin levels are low. And this is your oxygen transport, right? So you know that this person is tired. They don't recover well. But the interesting thing about people with low red blood cell and hemoglobin levels is they're exhausted, but they can't sleep. And you would think it would be the opposite. Why do people that are the most exhausted sleep the worst? Well, because they're both related to the same thing. They're mild hypoxia. It's low oxygen. Why are you tired? Because you have low blood oxygen. If you have anemia, you're tired all the time. If you have anemia, why can't you sleep? Because when you lay down to go to bed at night and you start to fall asleep and your respiration rate starts to fall, your blood oxygen starts to fall. As your blood oxygen falls and it gets to a certain level, your brain panics and wakes you up by pulsing cortisol. So if you look at somebody that's really exhausted during the day, when they sleep, they'll look like a bouncing rubber ball going down the hallway. And the reason why they look like a bouncing rubber ball and they can't get into a deep sleep is because their brain is trying to save their life and it is keeping them from a deep sleep. And often they'll go to their doctor and they'll take some really powerful sleep medication or, the tranquilizing or sedative. And they'll wake up the next morning and go, man, I hate taking Tylenol PM because it's still in my system the next day. It's actually not in your system the next day. That drug's been out of your system for hours. You're feeling the effects of having suffocated for 6 hours because you blindfolded the brain from being able to see your level of blood oxygen. So it didn't wake you up. And now you suffocated for 6 hours. And the longer that goes on, the more you exacerbate these issues. So most people didn't know what was going wrong in their blood. We would see that people had anemia for years and years and years and years. And the doctors would treat them with the same treatment they do for anemia all the time: B12, folic acid, and iron. Well, 44% of the population can't even process folic acid. They have a gene mutation that doesn't allow them to convert folic acid into the usable form. So folic acid, by the way, is a totally man-made chemical. You can't find it anywhere on the surface of the earth. It's found in the cheapest supplements and the cheapest products, companies that really are not concerned about the absorption.
When you say you can't find it anywhere on earth, but it exists. So
it doesn't exist anywhere on the surface of the earth naturally in nature. You can't find it anywhere naturally in nature. I apologize for that. You can find it in laboratories. We make folic acid in the laboratory. It's totally synthetic. We assume that folic acid, when we put it into human beings, it is going to work like folate. But that's absolutely patently false because 44% of the population has a gene mutation that does not allow them to make this conversion. So we use folic acid because it's cheap. Methylfolate and true folates, which all human beings can use, are a little more expensive. That's why you see a lot of cheap supplement companies will use cyanide-based forms of B12, like cyanocobalamin, instead of using natural forms of B12, like methylcobalamin or adenosylcobalamin or hydroxycobalamin.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Sorry.
There's so many terms.
Sorry, I get way down the road. Your listeners are probably
completely
like
lost.
passing out.
I'm completely lost.
Passing out.
Let me come back to.
If you don't, I'm a scientist, man. If you don't stop
let
me,
me ask you. No, it's all great. But let me ask you this.